In a world without system integration, social integration has to carry the entire burden of structuration, as long as no new order begins to settle in. The desocialized capitalism of the interregnum hinges on the improvised performances of structurally self-centered, socially disorganized, and politically disempowered individuals. 4 broad types of behaviors are required of the users of post-capitalist social networks for the precarious reproduction of their entropic social life, bestowing resilience both on themselves and on an otherwise unsustainable neoliberal capitalism, summarily and provisionally to be identified as coping, hoping, doping, and shopping.
Coping, hoping, doping, and shopping. Really?
Yeah, that is an attempt to shortly pull together an image of the sort of social life that the interregnum that I see coming will require for it to continue. What I'm not saying is that social life can be reduced to coping, hoping, doping, and shopping. My optimistic part is that human beings will not allow themselves to be reduced to such a life. Let's talk about coping. Coping is an attitude or an activity whereby people who lack traditional supports, either from families or from the social services, work very hard to cope with increasing pressures on their everyday life. And you can observe this in so lots of studies on family life in the United States and in Europe, where 2 people work full time. They try to raise 2 children. They live a very sort of regulated, exhausting life in order to meet all the contingencies that hang together with competing in the labor market, caring for others, caring maybe also for their parents, in a world in which external help is increasingly less available. Now, what I sort of observe in ethnographic studies is that people actually can become proud of their ability to exhaust themselves in this struggle, so that they say, we're coping, we're good, and others are less good or bad at coping. So it becomes a matter of pride to subject yourself to this rigid discipline imposed on you by the market and the career and so on.
Is that where the hoping comes from? You sort of turn your coping into something bigger.
Yeah, the hoping is a lot of things. I mean, in the book, I remark that from my own experience in the United States, one word is sort of the word that keeps the society together, which is dream. You have to dream. You have to have dreams. And if you don't, other people will sort of look at you, think something's wrong with you. Hoping is extremely important for keeping a society sort of together as an individual activity that is, however, socially obligatory.
Doping. Where does doping come from?
Doping is also interesting. We now know about the rapidly spreading use of drugs in the center of the United States. Now, doping is a way of in the book I say that there's 2 ways of using drugs. One is to increase your performance, and the other is to substitute for lack of performance, so to speak.
I want to quote, if I can, a passage from your book.
Yeah.
Before capitalism will go to hell, then, it will, for the foreseeable future, hang in limbo, dead, or about to die from an overdose of itself, but still very much around, as nobody will have the power to move its decaying body out of the way. That's pretty stark imagery there, and I get the impression you're not necessarily in love with the situation you're describing. I mean, decaying
No.
bodies and going to hell.
Yeah, yeah. But what can you say? You're facing a situation that is extremely critical. Now, if you write such a piece, you want to be heard, and you want to make clear that people should think in an imagery, which they usually do not want to apply because they want to go home and be happy. But in my view, there is a decaying body there, and there is nobody who can move it out of the way.
Not even the financial elites, not even the new oligarchs, the people who they're hopeless.
They are part of the decaying body, or there was, I think, 2 or 3 copies of the New Yorker back, and there was an article on survivalism among the American very, very rich. In my book, I say, I envisage a situation in which inequality becomes so big that something happens that has never happened before in the history of human societies. That is that the elites of the society lose interest in the society as a whole because they can survive on their own. This guy wrote this article about American billionaires. Someone, for example, buys the silo of an intercontinental missile, which is hardened against nuclear attack, and builds deep into the ground, builds apartments there that he sells within a matter of a few weeks to New York financial billionaires, tech billionaires from California, who all buy one of these apartments because they are afraid of a breakdown of social order and of people taking guns and trying to go after them. I think these people are not so unrealistic. I don't think they are obsessed. They see better than most others the decaying body of a system that can no longer keep itself together. I take this as a very interesting example of what I thought when I looked at the increase in inequality in our societies, that we could be facing the moment when those that absorb and extract all the resources from these societies begin to think that they can dissociate itself from it and live their own lives.